Alim. December 8th, Earth Year 2103. I thought I was going to die in that hospital. Hell, maybe I wanted to. Pachal was the only sapient being who ever treated me with half a shred of decency, and now she was dead because of me. I could forgive them for killing me. I'd done enough bad shit to deserve it 10 times over. But Pachal? She was a good person. Lights flickered and flashed through my brain, unable to form any coherent shape, but even still I heard her voice calling out to me. Don't you think there are enough humans like you who deserve freedom? I wanted to follow that voice, to join her wherever she went. This world never had anything for me anyway. But then, as though in another act of cruelty from the universe, I woke up. Above my face, a circle of white light glared down with a blinding intensity. Blurry shapes flitted against the light, silhouettes moving with coordination that didn't make sense for hallucinations. The shadows recoiled away as I sat up, blinking them into focus. Standing in front of me was a Rubolian dressed in a lab coat. Mr. Alim, good to see you awake. He nodded. Behind him, I saw an Inzar and a Kefalt toying with equipment I didn't recognize. We were lucky to recover you in salvageable condition. Where am I? I groaned, forcing myself to sit up and look around. Wherever I was, it looked less like a hospital and more like a laboratory. There were no visible windows to the outside, and the equipment was like nothing I'd ever seen. I wasn't a tech guy, but something about the devices here practically gloated over how advanced they were compared to the rest of the galaxy. That's classified information, continued the Rubolian, casually brushing off the question as he picked up a tablet and fiddled with it, seemingly writing something down. We've been observing you for some time, keeping track of your activities and building a psychological profile. Rest assured you've impressed us. Confusion flitted through my aching head as I sifted through years of memory in search of anything that would stand out as exceptional. What do you mean impressed? I asked after eventually giving up on figuring it out myself. Do you remember the incident 4 years ago with that stray who walked into a downtown mall and started shooting? The Rubolian asked me, conjuring the memory up from my mind. I was tracking him at the time, I told the alien, swinging my legs over the medical bedside and rubbing my forehead in an attempt to assuage the lingering pain. I was a few blocks away when he bought the gun, and he got to the site before I could catch him. The Rubolian nodded along to my account, handing the tablet off to the Kefalt before pulling up footage on a nearby projector. In the video, I tackled a civilian out of the way of the shooter's fire, taking a grazing shot to my dominant arm in the process. You risked your life to defend a civilian. After that, the footage continued, showing me stealing the gun of a downed officer and exchanging fire with the human. My aim could have been better, but eventually I got a lucky shot off and domed him. Not only that, but you neutralized the threat. He'd have killed a dozen more before reinforcements arrived. So? I groaned, attempting to stand up only to be halted by the Rubolian, who placed his webbed hand against my chest in a gentle gesture for me to stop. After that incident, we looked through your background. You know that woman you supposedly murdered? Her autopsy matched almost perfectly with 3 others from a suspected serial killer a few states over, naked with a triangle of stab wounds around the ribcage with the heart carved out. If the human authorities had bothered to do the bare minimum research rather than accusing the easiest subject, they probably would have found the real killer before he went on to take 3 more lives. My stomach turned. All those years they kept me locked up for, all because the bastards were too lazy to find the real perpetrator. What happened to the one who did it? I asked, hoping at least for a just conclusion. We did some digging and found someone whose movements matched the killings, but they fell off the map following the Council's introduction to Earth, sighed the Rubolian, regarding me with what I assumed was pity. Unfortunately, it's unlikely he'll ever be found. Enough bullshit, I growled, fixing a cold glare upon the Xenos. What the hell do you want with me? Why am I here? The background Inzar's quills prickled up with slight anxiety upon my words, but the Rubolian before me did not flinch. Apologies for my rudeness. I do not recall introducing myself. My name is Dr. Omu, Senior Director of the Martyr Program. That caught my attention. I'd never actually seen a martyr in person before, but their activities were legendary. So you're the guy who makes the martyrs? I asked, seeking clarification. Nobody makes a martyr, Omu retorted lightly, pulling up a series of techno-babble schematics I couldn't hope to understand on screen. Martyrs are formed by their actions and experience. We just build the chassis. And you, Alim? You have what we're looking for. You want to make me into a martyr? I asked, not believing the words even out of my own mouth. But why? Your laws say humans aren't even sapient. Precisely, replied the doctor, allowing silence to hang in the air for a moment before continuing. You see, the largest hurdle with inducting martyrs more advanced than what we can now isn't the technology, it's the brain. Sapient minds are difficult to integrate into computer systems, and this limits how much the martyr's new body can differ from its original. Human brains, however, appear to function differently. Our models suggest this difference might allow for greater latitude in what we can supply a martyr. Being used as a tool for other people's interests wasn't exactly unfamiliar waters for me, but even still I couldn't help but hesitate at this one. So I'm your lab rat? I growled in suspicion. No, you're our secret weapon. What do you even need a more advanced martyr for? I inquired, accepting a water bottle silently offered by the Inzar lab technician and taking a long swig. Those things are already damn near unstoppable. Omu responded with a gurgling sound somewhat resembling a sigh, and with similar meaning among his species. You see, Alim, your human kin in the Straders have grown to represent a substantial danger to Council stability. In order to ensure the safety and security of the galaxy, we need an operative who can more effectively target and dismantle their leadership. The Straders. That name echoed through my skull in grim chorus with the sound of the gunshot that had killed Pakal. I'd always thought the Straders were stupid to step up against the Council. After all, you don't compromise with a fly, you swat it. Up until my partner's death, though, I didn't really have anything against them. Now, there wasn't a damn thing I wouldn't do to piss on their graves in Pashal's honor. I'm sure this is difficult for you. The notion of turning against one's own kind always is, Omu continued, clearly misinterpreting my silence as hesitation. You should think of this as helping humanity, though. Their revolution is understandable, but far too violent. They gun down civilians without a second thought and leave devastation in their wake. If we do not stop them, then the Council may eventually be forced to resort to drastic measures. Your kind are unique, Alim. I really would hate to see them wiped from the face of the galaxy. Unfortunately, we cannot justify placing the needs of a single species above the needs of all others. No, I get it. I nodded, stepping closer to the screen as Omu flipped to the image of a blueprint more detailed than the prior ones. I was no engineer, but the words integrated weapon systems repeated throughout the document told me all I needed to know about the technical stuff. Mind I ask you a question? The doctor nodded in reply, the gesture awkward as he clearly was attempting to replicate it from human body language. You're more than welcome to. Why, pets, I began, clearing my throat for a moment before clarifying further. If we're not sapient by your standards, then why not just enslave us instead? That's probably what we'd have done. After a few seconds of slightly awkward silence, Omu turned to look me in the eyes. Unfortunately, the exact details of the Council's reasoning are a slight bit above my pay grade. What I can tell you is that the Sapience laws are non-exceptional, meaning that if a species does not meet the requirements, then we legally cannot classify them as sapient. The Council hearing was to determine whether or not we should change that definition to include humans. He paused for a second, his face twitching as though he was contemplating whether or not to say more. He must have thought better of it, though, because he didn't say another word on the topic. Back to the matter at hand, Alim. Have you made your decision? The doctor spoke like he was expecting me to refuse, or at least to require more persuading. The hell have I got to lose? I shrugged, staring him dead on with resolute fury. Show me where to sign, and I'll give those bastards hell. Xander Ridgeford, Strader General. December 8th, Earth Year 2103. All things considered, our raid on the Jakuvian homeworld had been successful to the point of bordering on a miracle. Only 92 casualties while invading one of the Council's most well-defended planets was, to put it lightly, pretty damn good. By the time those bastards had mustered up the reinforcements to take on our new dreadnoughts head-to-head, we were already long gone through a series of scattered jumps. Down in the Rex's less fancy bar, the atmosphere was light, lifted up like helium by celebration as we, the last free humans in the galaxy, drank and sang, and just for tonight, let ourselves believe in the lie of new beginnings. I can't believe it! Avery sighed, her head firmly tucked into the crook of Parak's neck with enough open affection to leave me on the verge of scolding her for unbefitting conduct. This wasn't the time for that, though. For now, the crew had just tasted our biggest win yet, and I wanted them to savor it, because the next one was never a guarantee. Seated at wooden tables designed to last generations, some of the crew had managed to find a collection of pre-contact football games on the galactic web, and were watching like they'd never seen them before. Over near the ping-pong table, Hugo was reminding us by example how much he sucked at darts, while Eddie told a long, rambling story about the old pool table his dad used to own. Meanwhile, next to me at the bar, Dwight was hunched over a heavily spiked daiquiri, bemoaning the loss of his unit to that martyr. "You should have seen it," he murmured, stuck halfway between loathing and awe. "That thing tore them apart like they were nothing. How are we supposed to win against that kind of force?" "One act of well-intentioned terrorism at a time," I shrugged, tongue thoroughly in cheek, offering a participatory whoop as on the television the team we'd arbitrarily designated as home scored a touchdown. "You can't blame yourself," I told him, half offering advice, half giving an order. "You don't get it," Dwight grumbled morosely, sipping his drink and staring up absent-mindedly at the old football game. "They were my men. It was my job to get them all back here safely. I failed them." Navigating around to the other side of the bar to pour myself a beer from the tap, I kept eye contact with Dwight all the while, speaking in my best, well-meaning commander tone. "Listen," I sighed, searching for the right words to comfort the soldier. "This is war. People die. It's not—" The laughter around me warped for just a second, too slow, too deep, like the universe had inhaled. For a heartbeat, every face in the room seemed to ripple like reflections on water. Images and lights flashed through my vision for a split second, leaving me silent as my hand trembled hard enough to make the beer spill out onto my quivering grasp. "Are you okay, Xander?" Dwight called from what felt like miles away, his mourning over the loss of those men giving way to concern for me. "I'm fine," I growled, setting down the glass and walking toward the bar's exit. Suddenly, all the loud noises felt like hammers going to town on my skull. "I just need some better air." Maybe it was something in the way I walked that caused everyone's head to turn and face me as I left. Entering the nearby shuttle and pressing the button that'd take me back to the bridge, my eyes immediately locked onto Avery as came jogging in from behind me. "Is something up?" she asked, as the doors slid shut, giving way to a gentle whir as the shuttle took us up to the command center. "Nothing you need to worry about," I growled, stepping back out as soon as the shuttle came to a halt at the foot of the Rex's still immaculately impressive bridge. "I just got tired of the party, that's all." Hearing this, I saw confusion flicker across Avery's face. "Are you sure you're all right?" she asked, following me like a stray dog as I made my way up to the captain's chair. Across the ship's habitation bay, our people were gleefully moving into the apartments. If I'd seen 2 weeks ago where we were now, I'd have called it a dream. So why wasn't I happy? "You always have to push, don't you?" I asked her, my volume and tone causing Avery to recoil slightly. "Go back to the party, Avery. I'm sure Parak's wondering where you went anyway." She didn't leave, didn't even hesitate. "He already knows I came to check up on you," she explained. "Why can't you ever just do what I damn say?" I snapped, casting a razor-sharp glare towards her. "When that Xeno finally gets you a shock collar, remind me to ask for the copy of the remote." "Xander, I know you're a bastard, but that was just uncalled for," she replied, calm yet stern like the cool teacher trying to scold one of their students. I felt the sudden urge to remind her who was in charge. The bridge was mostly empty, nobody there but a few navigation officers. I don't know why, but I quickly found myself sizing them up before stopping myself. Why did it matter if we were alone here? I was the goddamn captain of the Straighters. People argued with me all the damn time. Hell, if I'd had a credit for every time Avery alone questioned me, I could buy our freedom and have money to spare. I turned around and approached the captain's console to run a quick diagnostic. Then I heard the whisper. It was quiet, unintelligible. There wasn't enough volume behind it to interpret whose voice it was, but there was only one person standing close enough to mutter under their breath and have me hear. "What the hell did you just say?" I snapped, spinning on a dime and half lunging toward Avery before stopping myself in response to the sudden glint of uncharacteristic fear in her eyes. "Nothing! What has gotten into you?" she asked in a mixture of defensiveness and accusation. "Relax," I sighed, shaking my head to knock all my neurons back into place. "Just some excess stress from the raid. We lost more people than I wanted. Now go enjoy the party," I continued, pulling up the ship cameras and glancing at the one connected to the bar I'd just left. Back there, people were still celebrating just like they had been before, though I noticed Parak fidgeting with his drink as he awaited Avery's return. "Not until I know what's going on here," Avery demanded, causing my fingers to twitch with annoyance. "You're not normally like this, not without a good reason. What's up?" "It's just like I said, nothing." Despite my efforts to make her leave, however, Avery wouldn't get out of my face. "As your second in command, don't I deserve to know?" she continued rhetorically. "Did something happen during the raid I'm not aware of?" Shooting up from my seat and storming past the navigation techs, who all looked at me as though I'd suddenly grown a second head, I exited the bridge and instead came to my luxurious new captain's quarters, sealing the door behind me and ignoring Avery's fists banging upon it. The decor of the captain's quarters looked like it had been chosen explicitly for a human by someone who knew enough about human history to know what they looked like, but not enough to know what they represented. Portraits of famous past leaders stared back at me from the wall as I approached the desk that was twice the size it needed to be, and opened up a point of secure web access. "Is everything all right?" Dovetail asked through my screen, their avatar blinking into view overlaid on the computer's wallpaper. "Go away," I demanded, attempting to close our benefactor's access point, but to no avail. "You're not my damn therapist. Nobody is." On the other side of my door, Avery must have heard this and assumed I was talking to her, because shortly thereafter she gave up and stomped down the hall away from me, suddenly deciding to actually listen. "It was wrong of her to be questioning you," Dovetail continued despite my request, their tone cool and unemotional. "You are her captain. Your frustration is understandable." "You were watching that?" I growled, leaning in to cast a deep glare at the machine serving as a relay between myself and whatever the hell Dovetail really was. The avatar froze for a second, like it was contemplating what words to spit out next. "I wanted to maintain surveillance over the vessel to ensure your crew are all under control," it replied at last. "I apologize if I hadn't made myself clear on that condition." I was about to tell Dovetail to go fuck itself when something flashed in the periphery of my vision. Turning to face the source, all I saw were the faces of painted humans staring back at me. King George III, Nero, Caligula. It was like they were somewhere between mocking me and asking me to join them on the wall. "Mind telling me what's going on right now?" I demanded, staring at the portraits instead of Dovetail like I was expecting them to answer. Suddenly, a small window popped up on my screen. Enlarging it, I saw 4 words that for a few seconds made no sense at all. "The hell is this?" I growled, getting damn tired of this person's riddles, assuming, that is, that they were a person. "Your answer," Dovetail replied as I opened the file. "Archeron's law exposure psychosis," I murmured, reading the old document from a human clinic pre-takeover. "How about you just tell me what you're trying to say instead of giving me homework about it?" "Your encounter with the martyr and subsequent exposure to Archeron's law may have resulted in some minor damage to cognition," explained Dovetail. "Bullshit," I growled, closing the screen window and approaching my personal whiskey cabinet for a sorely needed drink. "I feel fine. Just a little off is all." Dovetail's avatar remained silent for a second. "Can you trust your crew with this information?" they asked. "Avery might want your position enough to push for removing you if it gets out." "She wouldn't do that." I shook my head, picking up a whiskey glass only to find my fingers trembling. After a few seconds, I gave up on pouring the bottle anywhere but directly into my mouth. "She's insubordinate but not mutinous." "If you say so," Dovetail replied, surrendering the notion without much effort on my part to dispel it. "Even still, are you sure you want to take the risk of telling them?" "It's like you said," I chuckled, standing up and taking a swig. "Minor cognitive damage. Nothing severe, right?" By this point in the day, I was fully ready for our benefactor to demand I tell everyone. If the crew knew what I'd suffered, every decision I made would suddenly be suspect. Then Dovetail spoke up again. For a normal human, I'd say it's too risky to continue command. You, however, are beyond parameters for a normal human. They confessed. Let's keep this our little secret for now. With that, the avatar on my screen disappeared, leaving me alone in my room that for some reason hadn't felt empty since I stepped in.